Something is happening, quietly, right now. There is a movement beneath the surface of the world that few can name and even fewer can see. While noise fills the air and lights blind the eyes, an invisible line is being drawn through hearts, through churches, through nations. It does not flash like lightning. It does not announce itself with thunder. It moves like a breath in the dark, separating without sound, weighing without scales. Many feel an unease they cannot explain. Others feel nothing at all, and that is the most dangerous sign of all. We live in an hour where everything looks normal on the outside and fractured on the inside. Voices multiply, but truth grows faint. Crowds gather, but souls remain alone. Light is spoken of everywhere, yet discernment grows dim. It is as if a veil has been laid gently over the eyes of many, not to blind forcefully, but to lull slowly, softly, patiently. The world keeps moving, buying and selling, building and celebrating, while something eternal is being decided in the hidden chambers of the soul. The separation does not begin in the skies. It begins in the heart. It begins in what no one posts, no one applauds, no one notices but God. There is a silence moving through the spiritual atmosphere, and inside that silence a voice still speaks, not loudly, not desperately, firmly, faithfully, calling those who still know how to listen. Some hear it as restlessness, others as discomfort, others as a quiet grief they cannot explain. It is the sound of shaking before the fall, of pruning before the harvest, of oil being tested before the midnight cry. In many places the lamps are still burning, but the oil is running thin. The outer form remains, but the inner fire weakens. And still the ceremonies continue, the words are spoken, the songs are sung. Yet heaven listens for something deeper than sound. Heaven listens for readiness. This invisible phenomenon is not random. It is not merely emotional. It is not the result of exhaustion, crisis, or change alone. It is the slow exposure of what was always there, hidden beneath habit and comfort. What once could coexist now begins to separate. Passion from routine, faith from religion, watchfulness from distraction. The pressure increases not to crush, but to reveal. What is rooted grows deeper. What is hollow begins to collapse inwardly. And many do not yet understand why their peace has been disturbed, why their old securities no longer satisfy, why what once felt sufficient now feels empty. Across the earth, in quiet rooms and crowded sanctuaries, the same stirring is felt in different ways. A narrowing of the path, a thinning of the crowd, a sharpening of the call. God is not growing distant. He is drawing nearer. And the closer his presence comes, the more everything unlike his presence begins to tremble. This is why some feel uncomfortable in places that once felt safe. This is why distractions grow louder, while true rest becomes harder to find. This is why the soul senses that time, though still moving forward, no longer moves loosely. This is not coincidence. It is alignment. It is not chaos. It is preparation. And what is unfolding now was spoken long ago, in veiled language, in stories, in warnings wrapped in mercy. The code was hidden in plain sight, waiting for an hour when the eyes would be forced to choose between seeing and sleeping. The signs were never meant to create fear. They were meant to awaken love, vigilance, and return. What you are feeling is not imagination. What you are sensing is not accident. The ground is being measured. The lamps are being checked. The separation has already begun, quietly, gently, relentlessly. And in the midst of this unseen movement, the voice of Jesus still calls, still warns, still invites. That voice is not fading. It is growing clearer for those who are willing to follow it forward. The unease lingers in the air, the sense that something has shifted and cannot return to what it was. Hearts feel the weight of the unseen, the quiet pressure of a truth that refuses to stay hidden. What began as a subtle stirring now grows into a steady knock upon the soul. And into this tension, into this fragile moment of awakening and resistance, the voice of Jesus rises again, not as an echo of the past, but as a living warning for the present hour. He speaks as one who sees the end from the beginning, as one who knows how easily hearts grow dull when comfort increases and danger seems far away. His words are not wrapped in fear, but in urgent love. He speaks of watchfulness when others grow careless. He speaks of readiness while the world drifts into sleep. He speaks of a narrow way while crowds rush toward the wide and familiar road. His warnings are not cries of panic. They are the steady, faithful voice of a shepherd who knows that night is approaching and the flock is scattered. He tells of houses built with confidence on fragile ground, of lives that look strong until the storms quietly reveal their weakness. He tells of servants entrusted with treasure, some faithful in the waiting, others distracted by the illusion of delay. He tells of weddings where the doors are shut not in cruelty, but by consequence, and beneath every story, beneath every image, flows the same message again and again. Stay awake, remain faithful, do not assume tomorrow will look like today. His voice cuts gently but deeply through the modern soul. Churches are full, yet many hearts are empty. Songs rise, yet obedience grows rare. Many say they see, yet stumble over the simplest truths. There is a quiet confidence spreading that says, I am fine, I am safe, I need nothing, and this, more than open rebellion, is the place of greatest danger. For comfort can sedate faster than fear. Satisfaction can blind more effectively than suffering. The heart that no longer trembles before God soon stops listening for his voice. Jesus warned of days when truth would feel heavy and lies would feel light, when what was once obvious would become negotiable. He spoke of a season when many would trade endurance for ease, devotion for routine, presence for performance, and now those words breathe again in our time. Many have learned to look alive while growing inwardly cold. Many have learned the language of faith while avoiding its cost. Many have learned to call him Lord while resisting the quiet authority of his Spirit. Yet his warnings are never offered without hope. For every shadow he reveals, he also lights a path to escape it. He speaks of those who endure not through strength of personality, but through depth of surrender. He speaks of lamps that remain lit, not because the night is short, but because the oil has been guarded with care. He speaks of small acts done in secret that carry the weight of eternity. He speaks of hearts that refuse to grow numb, even when surrounded by noise and compromise. And now, in the stillness beneath the noise of the world, his voice presses closer than ever. It asks not for perfection, but for truth, not for noise, but for listening, not for display, but for devotion. He does not shout over the crowd. He speaks into the conscience. He does not force the door. He waits for it to be opened, but his waiting is not endless. There is a moment when invitation becomes decision, when mercy hardens into consequence simply because time has run its course. This is the warning that breathes through the present hour, not as a threat, but as a gift. Not as terror, but as awakening. The door is still open, the voice is still calling, the oil can still be gathered. But the night is deepening, and the signs are no longer distant. They are unfolding now, quietly, relentlessly, in the hidden spaces where eternity is shaped. This is the alert, and it is happening now. The season of warning gives way to the season of testing. What is spoken in the light is now weighed in the fire. What was confessed with the lips is now examined in the heart. This is the hour when faith is no longer a declaration but a condition, no longer a posture but a substance. Pressure is applied not to destroy, but to reveal. The hidden impurities rise to the surface. The unseen attachments begin to loosen. The allegiance of the soul is quietly measured. Many feel as though something is being taken from them, yet cannot name what it is. Plans lose their sweetness. Old refuges offer diminishing comfort. Relationships shift, routines dissolve, certainties tremble. It feels like loss, yet it is mercy in disguise. For what leaves in this hour is what would not survive the fire ahead. What remains is what was always eternal. This is not rejection. This is refinement. The hand that wounds is the same hand that heals, and the fire that cleanses is the fire that preserves. Long ago, a man built an ark while skies remained clear and laughter filled the air. He was called foolish by the many and lonely by the wise. Yet in his obedience, life was hidden within wooden walls while the world outside slept. Another man was led out of a city at dusk, urged not to look back at what he once called home. His future depended not on speed, but on direction. These stories were not only about them, they were rehearsals for the soul. They were shadows of what it means to be separated for preservation and preserved through separation. The refining process often feels like isolation. Familiar voices grow distant, the crowd thins, the noise fades, silence expands, and in that silence the heart begins to hear its own true condition for the first time. This is where many grow afraid, mistaking quiet for abandonment. But heaven often does its deepest work in the absence of applause. The garden is always lonely before the resurrection. The wilderness is always quiet before the promise is fulfilled. The fire does not announce itself. It simply burns until only what is real remains. There is a shaking in this hour that cannot be stopped. It moves through comfort, through identity, through ambition. What was built on recognition begins to crumble. What was fueled by approval begins to starve. Only what was rooted in surrender grows stronger under pressure. The wind intensifies not to uproot the tree, but to test the depth of its roots. And many are discovering how shallow their roots had silently become. Yet even now, the shaking is grace. For whatever can be restored through repentance is being given the chance to return. If you feel stripped, you are not alone. If you feel unseen, you are not forgotten. If you feel pressed, you are not being punished. The furnace has not been lit to consume you, but to reveal the gold hidden beneath what was temporary. The silence you feel is not the absence of God. It is often the nearness of a work too deep for noise. The loneliness is not always separation from Him. Sometimes it is separation for Him. Those who endure this process do not emerge louder, they emerge clearer. They do not emerge proud, they emerge clean. The fire leaves behind a quieter confidence, a steadier love, a devotion that no longer depends on conditions. These are the ones who learn to stand without audience, to obey without reward, to believe without evidence. These are the ones being prepared not for comfort, but for custody of something holy. So do not flee the fire. Do not curse the wind. Do not fear the silence. What is being removed is not your life. It is what was stealing your life. What is being burned is not your faith. It is what imitated faith. The refining has a purpose, and the purpose has a promise. Those who remain faithful in this hidden season will recognize the voice when it calls aloud. And they will not be strangers when the moment of unveiling arrives. Soon the testing will give way to the final examination. Soon the subtle will become visible. Soon the last deception will reveal its shape. And the heart that has been refined in secret will be the heart that stands in the open. The final test rarely arrives as darkness. It comes wrapped in light. It does not roar like a storm. It hums like a lullaby. It does not confront the soul with terror. It comforts the soul into sleep. This is the genius of the last deception. It does not deny faith. It redefines it. It does not attack devotion. It replaces it with familiarity. It does not remove God from the lips. It removes Him from the center of the heart. The great danger of this hour is not open rebellion. It is peaceful illusion. It is the feeling of safety without the substance of surrender. It is spiritual language without spiritual life. It is the soft voice that whispers, "You are fine. You need nothing. Rest now." And many listen, not because the voice is violent, but because it is soothing. The soul is not dragged into sleep, it is sung into it. Once there was a woman who escaped disaster with her feet moving forward, yet her heart turned backward. Her body was saved for a moment, but her longing bound her to what was judged. Her eyes betrayed the direction her soul had never truly left. She did not fall because she stopped believing. She fell because she could not release what once defined her. And her story lingers as a warning that escape with the feet does not guarantee escape of the heart. There were also 10 who waited in the night with lamps in their hands. All looked prepared. All appeared equal. All carried light. Yet only half carried what could sustain the light when time stretched longer than expected. The difference was not in appearance. It was in reserve. Not in confession, but in devotion when no one was watching. The door did not close because they were hated. It closed because they were unready, and readiness is never borrowed. It is cultivated alone. There was a church that believed itself rich, secure, and seeing clearly. It measured itself by what it possessed and concluded it lacked nothing. Yet heaven saw it differently. Heaven saw poverty hidden beneath abundance, blindness beneath confidence, and nakedness beneath fine garments. The most dangerous poverty is not the absence of things, it is the absence of need. For the soul that no longer feels desperate for God soon stops seeking Him. This is how the final deception works. It numbs desire, it dulls ache, it replaces hunger with routine. The songs remain, the gatherings continue, the words sound right, yet the trembling before God fades. Tears once shed in secret disappear. The quiet wrestle of repentance grows rare, and slowly, very slowly, the soul learns to function without fire. It still moves, it still speaks, it still believes. But it no longer burns. The enemy does not need to destroy the church if he can simply distract it. He does not need to silence prayer if he can make it mechanical. He does not need to erase truth if he can make it comfortable. His strategy is not always the lie that shocks. It is the lie that soothes, not the scream, but the whisper, not the upheaval, but the cushion. A gospel without cost, a faith without surrender, a peace without the cross. And in this climate, many measure themselves by others and conclude they are awake because the crowd is awake. They conclude they are ready because the room is full. They conclude they are alive because the noise is loud. But heaven does not count crowds. Heaven weighs hearts. Heaven does not listen for volume. Heaven listens for surrender. And the standards of heaven have not changed, even when the culture of earth has shifted. This is the hour to test the oil, not the appearance of the lamp. Not the brightness of the flame for a moment, but the depth of the reserve when the delay stretches long. This is the hour to question what makes you feel safe. This is the hour to examine what makes you feel full. This is the hour to ask whether your peace comes from God's presence or from the absence of pressure. Do not assume that what feels good is what is true. Do not assume that what feels calm is what is right. Some of the deepest sleeps come wrapped in the softest beds. Some of the loudest alarms come dressed in silence. The enemy's greatest victories rarely look like defeat. They look like comfort. So awaken the inner ear. Stir the quiet conscience. Test the spirit behind every voice, every promise, every peace that asks nothing of you. The time of casual faith is passing. The time of measured devotion is ending. The night will soon be filled with a cry that cannot be mistaken. And only those who refuse the lullaby will recognize the sound as joy instead of shock. Wake up now, while there is still oil to gather, while the door is still open. In this hour, watchfulness is not a feeling. It is a way of living. It is the daily choosing of depth over display, of silence over noise, of surrender over routine. The oil that sustains the lamp is not gathered in moments of crisis, but in seasons of quiet obedience. It is gathered when the door is closed and no one is watching, when the soul bends low without applause, when the heart whispers a humble yes in the dark. Prayer becomes breath, not performance. The word becomes nourishment, not information. Repentance becomes a lifestyle, not an emergency response. And slowly, without spectacle, the inner fire is kept alive. There is a vast difference between religious motion and living communion. One knows the songs, the other knows the voice. One knows how to appear faithful, the other knows how to remain faithful when no one affirms it. Relationship is born in the hidden place, where tears fall without witnesses, and confession rises without shame. It is there that the heart is softened, the motives are purified, and the false securities are dismantled piece by piece, not by force, but by love, not by fear, but by truth. There was a man who lived surrounded by noise, success, and approval. He never missed a gathering, never lacked words, never lacked recognition. Yet one night, alone in the quiet of his room, he realized he had not truly spoken to God in years. His prayers had become echoes, his faith had become habit, and in that holy discomfort he knelt for the first time without agenda. His life did not change in a moment, but it began to change in the right direction. There was also a woman burdened by shame she never voiced. She served faithfully, smiled constantly, and hid deeply. One day, exhausted by the weight of pretending, she whispered a trembling prayer of honesty. No audience, no performance. Just truth. That night, something broke free inside her. The chains had not been visible, but the freedom was real, and her watchfulness was reborn not in effort, but in intimacy. And there was a young soul caught between two worlds, distracted by the glow of endless distractions, numbing the quiet ache with constant noise. One evening, in an unplanned moment of stillness, he turned everything off and remained alone with his thoughts and his God. The silence felt unbearable at first. Then it became healing, and then it became sacred. From that night forward, his hunger shifted. The world lost some of its sweetness. Eternity gained its rightful weight. These are not extraordinary stories. They are ordinary awakenings. This is how the oil is kept. Through small choices made consistently, through quiet obedience that no one celebrates, through the painful but freeing act of letting go of what dulls the soul, through the courage to be alone with God when countless voices compete for attention. Watchfulness is not produced by panic. It is sustained by love that refuses to grow cold. The practices of the inner life are not tasks to be checked off, but pathways to be walked. Prayer that lingers when the words run out. Fasting that teaches the body it is not the master. Study that is not rushed but received. Confession that breaks the power of hiddenness. Silence that restores the ability to hear. These are not burdens. They are mercies that protect the flame when the winds intensify. And as the heart grows awake, it begins to understand the strange kindness of separation. What once felt like loss is revealed as protection. What once felt like isolation is revealed as invitation. The narrowing of the path is not the shrinking of life. It is the preservation of life. God does not separate to destroy. He separates to save. He removes with one hand what would consume with the other. This is why the present hour is not an hour of despair for those who see clearly. It is an hour of preparation dressed in mercy. The shaking is not abandonment, it is alignment. The discomfort is not cruelty, it is invitation. The quiet urgency pressing upon the soul is not condemnation. It is the kindness of a warning given before the storm. So remain awake in the ordinary, guard the flame in the unseen, choose the hidden altar over the public platform, and trust that the God who calls you to vigilance also supplies what you need to endure. The separation you feel is not the end of love. It is the beginning of rescue. This is not punishment, it is mercy. This is not abandonment, it is rescue. This is not loss, it is preservation. The shaking you feel is not the hand of destruction. It is the hand of separation that saves what would otherwise be lost. What is being removed now is not your future. It is what would have stolen your future. What is being stripped away is not your calling. It is what was diluting your calling. The narrowing you sense is not rejection. It is protection. Heaven is not closing in on you. Heaven is drawing near to gather what still belongs to light. The time is short. The signs are clear. The call is gentle, but the hour is serious. The world grows louder, yet truth speaks softer. Distractions multiply, yet the voice of God becomes more precise. The invitation does not shout. It waits. It waits for the soul to become quiet enough to hear it. And in this quiet, the eternal question is whispered again, not with threat, but with tenderness. Are you ready? Are you present? Are you watching? This message was never meant to produce terror. It was meant to produce oil. It was meant to produce fire that does not go out when midnight comes. It was meant to awaken the heart before the cry is heard in the streets. It was meant to restore hunger before the door is shut. The warning is not cruelty. The warning is love that refuses to remain silent while there is still time to return. Many will say peace, peace, but the wise will remain awake. Many will feel safe, but the faithful will remain watchful. Many will believe they are ready, but only those who lived ready will stand with joy. This is the mercy of the hour, that the invitation is still open, that the oil can still be gathered, that the heart can still be softened, that repentance still cleanses, that prayer still reaches heaven, that silence still carries the voice of God. Nothing is yet beyond restoration. Nothing is yet beyond forgiveness. Nothing is yet beyond awakening for the one who turns while the door remains open. Do not be afraid of the urgency. It is not the urgency of panic. It is the urgency of love. It is the urgency of a father who knows the night is deep and the road is long. It is the urgency of a bridegroom who prepares the way for those who are willing to be prepared. It is the urgency of mercy that still speaks before the final moment arrives. The time is short. The signs are clear. The bridegroom is near. Stay awake. Stay pure. Stay ready. And when the cry finally rises and the veil is lifted, may your heart not tremble in shock, but leap in recognition. May your soul not scramble in fear, but stand in quiet joy. May you not search in regret for what could have been gathered in secret, but lift your eyes with peace, because the work was already done in the hidden place. This is not the end of hope. This is the beginning of its unveiling.